Today we have a lot of Google reviews that we want to extract the sentiment of, and we're using the no-code tool Power Automate Desktop. So what we want to do is to extract all of these reviews here, and then we want to do sentiment analysis. That is, are they positive or negative? Let's start simple. So we will just copy paste the first. This will be our example. Of course, we will make it work to extract all reviews on a page. So copy this one here. Open up Power Automate Desktop and say New Flow. Here we will give it a name. I will call mine Sentiment Analysis Demo and hit Create. Please do this with me. Open up Power Automate Desktop and do the operations. You will learn so much faster. So our flow opens here. Up in the right corner, I will close the Copilot sidebar. We will not need that. We will create a new subflow. And that is to structure our flow better. So I'll hit the subflows, say new subflow. The first subflow we want to create is the sentiment analysis subflow. And we can see we have it here. Today we're using the new Power Automate Desktop action called create text with GPT. So go search for that. Then drag it in. Here we will give instructions to the GPT model, and then it will give us a response in this variable down here, predict v2 text response. We can craft this instruction ourselves. That could be analyze the sentiment of this text and then paste in the text. But instead, we can use a template. Click the create instructions here. Here we have a lot of templates. We want to use the sentiment analysis of text, so go click here. Here you can see it. Identify the sentiment of the text below as positive, neutral, or negative. That is, we are looking at the text and then GPT will say positive, neutral, or negative. And it will also say, identify the possible subject courses for the sentiment assessment. That is, let's say it was negative, then it could say, oh, the teaching was bad because Anders didn't show anything. Then that will be a course. Then it says, if the text below has less than a couple of words or looks like a placeholder text, respond unknown. Otherwise, respond with the sentiment and possible subject courses. Then we can see a start of text, end of text, and a placeholder for the text here. So I mark this, say Control V, and paste in the review that we copied before. Yes, this is very static. We will create the flow that extract every review and iterate through those, but for now, this is a good test. If I want to test it, I can click Test It Out. Then we will have sentiment positive, possible subject courses for the sentiment assessment, Power Automate, Anders teaching style and knowledge. That's great. I can modify this instruction up here, or if I'm satisfied with it, I can say Use Instructions in Flow. Here we have created the instructions. Yes, that's much easier than do it ourselves, and feel free to modify it. Down here in the variables produced, we are producing two variables. The predict v2 response, that will be the JSON from OpenAI with a lot of information. And then the predict v2 text response, that will be the actual sentiment analysis. So click in here, and then you will say sentiment analysis, and we'll say save. Then you'll get an error. And that's because Microsoft wants you to display this sentiment analysis or whatever output there are in a display message to the user. That could be a great idea sometimes to have a human in the loop to verify the result, but today we want to automate everything. We don't need a human to verify all these. So what you will do is to find a display message. Microsoft says you need that, and then I will show you a hack. The message to display, that will be the sentiment analysis like this, and the hack is to tick this close message box automatically, say 0 seconds. Then it will just disappear, you won't even see it. Variables produced, we will disable it, we will not use this variable. I'll click save, then the error is gone. So that's it. Then I can go to my main. And here I need to run the subflow. That's because when I start a Power Automate Desktop flow, it will run the main. And if I don't instruct Power Automate Desktop to run a subflow, then it will not run. So go up to Actions and then find a Run Subflow and drag it in. Click this dropdown and choose Sentiment Analysis and click Save. Yes, we could have had the actions in main. We do these subflows to structure the whole flow a little bit better. Then we can click Run. it is running. And then if we go over here to our flow variables, take this sentiment analysis and double click over here, then we have the sentiment analysis, which is great. So that's how to use the create text with GPT. Now we will create the entire flow. We will build a few steps. The first thing we want to do is to create an initialization subflow where we will do all our initial operations. So go up to subflow, say new subflow, initialization, and hit save. Here I want to say launch new because I want to open up a browser, or in our case, I'll just say look in the already open browser. But we could automate that we also open up the browser. Choose the browser that you open up the link in. And by the way, the link is in here in the description if you want to open the page yourself. I will not launch a new instance, but I will attach to a running instance. And then I can find my Google Maps page. I can find that here. That were the reviews. We're saving this browser instance into a browser variable. That means that we can refer to that variable later in the flow. If we want to automate this window, then we'll click save. I prefer to have these subflow appear up here in the correct order. You don't need to do that. It's just cosmetics. So what I can do is to drag it over here. Then we have initialization and sentiment analysis. I also need to run this initialization, and that will be done before the sentiment analysis. So I will go over here, drag in run subflow, initialization, and click save. So what we're doing here is to initialize the browser. Then we also want to, before we can do a sentiment analysis, we also want to extract the data. So I want to create a new subflow, go up here, call this subflow extract data, hit save. Let's also move this over here so we have the correct order. To extract data that is systemized, that will be all reviews like that. Then we will find a extract data from web page, which can exactly do that, extract structured data. To activate this action, go to your Google reviews. Let me move this live web helper here. What we can do now is that we can point to different parts of the web page to extract that. You want to, first, we want to pick the name here because we want to extract those. So I'll say Mario Abate. I will right click, extract element value, and pick Mario Abate. Then I also want Daryl Dressel. That will be the second name. Whatever your name is, just pick those. Right click, extract element value, and pick Daryl Dressel. There you go. We have extracted all those. If we have more reviews, then we just need to scroll down. Now you can see it loaded the last review. And to check for that it also do this, then you can put a refresh. Then you will have number 9 as well, or number 200 if you were scrolling all the way down. Then we go back. I want to extract the first review. So that will be this one here. You want to use Power Automate, extract element value, pick the text here, and boom, we have extracted all of these. You can see here, we even have something in Danish, but GPT will understand that and output to English because we had the prompt in English. So that's really, really nice. I'll say finish. Then let me maximize it a bit. Here you can see the variables produced, that it will be a data from web page. This is a data table. A data table looks a lot like an Excel sheet with rows and columns. Let's give it a better name. That's also best practice, so we know a little bit better what data that's in. It's only for cosmetics again, but we want to structure these flows as great as possible so they are easy to maintain by me in the future, but also by my colleagues. So here I'll say Google reviews, and I'll click save. So now we're extracting the Google reviews. Then I also need to go back to main, and I will have another run subflow. So I will have a sub hidden up here in flow control. That will be between the initialization and sentiment analysis. Find the extract data and click save. So what happens now if I started it here, it will initialize, it will extract the data, that will be the entire of it, and then it will do sentiment analysis. This one is still hard-coded in, but we will iterate through all the reviews and do the sentiment analysis so we can print each row to Excel later on. go down to run delay, change this to 1. That is just the delay between the actions. It is 0.9 seconds here in the editor. That's because so we can see what's going on as developers. When we move it to production, start it automatically, for example, each morning, this delay will not be there. We don't need it right now. So what I want to do now is to click run, and then I just want to see that I can finish the flow and that we can finish it with no errors. You can see it ran. So if I go back here, then I want to go over to the flow variables again. And if you don't see it, just click the little X up here. Double click the 9 rows and 2 columns. And here we have it. Yes, it's still, we still need the sentiment analysis, but this is a start. Now let's go create the sentiment analysis. Here we want to, first, this Google Reviews, that is a data table, by the way. I want to create a master data table where I take each one of these rows and put them into. And that is because that is the only way we can add another column to a data table here in Power Automate Desktop, or we could do it in some other ways, but this is the easiest way. So I click close. Let's create our master data table. I will do that in Initialization. The way to do it is to find a set variable and drag it in here. I will give it a name. Let's give this data table reviews. That will be the master reviews. To create a data table, you will start with a percentage sign, then you want a curly bracket, and then you want a hard bracket. I will call the first column name. So in single quotation marks, write name, then do a comma. Then you want to say review, and then you want to say sentiment analysis, and do like this. Then I want a hard bracket, and then I want a curly bracket and a percentage sign. Because this is a header in my data table, I want to tell that. So I go over here between the curly brackets and the hard brackets and put in a head. That will make it a header row. Then we'll click save. Then we want to, when we have extracted the data, we want to add it to our new data table called reviews. So in here in extract data, I'll go to each row of this Google Reviews. Remember that was a data table. And for each row, I will add them to reviews. And let me show you that. So I will go to this extract data, and then I will say for each, can find it here in loops if it doesn't show up, and drag it in. The value to iterate, and that will be the Google Reviews. And then we can store it into a current Google Review. This name is whatever you want. And this is just a name that we use when we iterate over a collection. That will be, we take each item one by one from start to finish. Then we can refer to the current item as current Google Review. Again, we choose a name that says something about the data. So here I want to click save. Then I want to, so each time I have a row like here, I want to put them into the review. So what I will do here is to find a set variable and drag it in here. Here I will update the reviews data table. So I'll click this X, say reviews. What will be in there? Well, there will be whatever is in there. So that will be whatever is in the reviews. At the first time, there's nothing, but then rows will be added. So we will say keep whatever is in there. And then I will say plus, and then I'll add a row. Here I cannot add the entire Google Review. So it's easier just to say, I want to add the following row. So I'll add a curly bracket, then I'll have a hard bracket. And then I will go into my current Google Review like this. You'll need to remove the percentage sign. And then I want to say, give me whatever is in the first column of this current Google Review, because that was the name. So that will be index 0. And then I'll say comma. Because we're lazy, let's copy this one here. So the current Google Review and the hard bracket 0. Control V, change this to 1. This was the review. And then we will have a comma. We will have 2 single quotation marks. That's because we don't have anything in the last row. a last column, then we'll have a hard bracket end and a curly bracket end. So here we're saying, take this data table, use whatever is in it, and add this row. And this needs to match. So if we have 3 columns in the reviews, then we also need to add a row with 3 columns. That's why we do it like this. I'll click save. So we're doing that here. And then we can say, now I have a reviews with everything I need. I have the name, review, and then we also have a column called sentiment analysis. Then we can start to do the sentiment analysis. Let's go over here, because now it will not be hard-coded in. So here I'll have a for each. Again, it can't be hidden here in loops. Drag it in here in the sentiment analysis in the beginning. Here I want to iterate to the reviews, and we can call this one current review. You can see here the importance of naming your variables well, because now we have a Google review and just a review. We could call this master review as well. So then we have a save. Then I want to drag these 2 guys in. I can hold Control in while click both and drag it up here. So we're doing this over and over. So that is, we want to do it for this reviews. That was a data table. I want to do it for each row, and that will be whatever we have in here in the current review. Because we also need to keep track of where we at in this reviews, then we're using a helping variable that will say, we will count. So the first time we will make it 0. That's because it's 0 index data tables. I will show you that in a little while. So now I'll just add a counter that counts how many times we are doing the for each. So find a set variable, drag it in the sentiment analysis right here before the for each. Here I will call this row number. Like this, we will give it the name 0. And that's because the first row in the reviews, that is named 0 and 0 indexed. So, and then in the end of the for each, we will increase this variable by 1. Here it's very important. I see many people make a mistake. Make sure that this increase variable is always in the end of the for each. In that way, you will not see that it will get offset by 1 row later on. So just do it like me. It's important where it is. That was what I tried to say. That's it. Now we can say, now we can start adding this sentiment analysis to the reviews row where we add. To do so, we will find a set variable, and we will drag this one in after the display message. So what we will do here, we know that what we want to add is the sentiment analysis. So I click this X, say sentiment analysis. Where do I want to add this to? Well, I know I need to go into the reviews. That's the data table. So we cannot update the current review, but we want to update the data table. Here we will need an index of which row do we want to update. And that's exactly why we created the counter. So here I can say hard bracket. And now I need to write myself. Yeah, that sucks as an automation developer. So I'll say row number. Then I will have a hard bracket. Then I also need to say which column do I want to write this sentiment analysis into. Then I have another hard bracket. I can give an index, or I can give the header of that column. We call this one sentiment analysis. And then in a single quotation mark, that's because this is a header, not a variable, and a hard bracket end like this. So now each time we do this, we write in the sentiment analysis into this data table. I'll click save. Then the only thing that we need to do is to go into create text with GPT, because remember we have this hard-coded here. So instead of this text, I want to look into the current review. So I'll find the current review, and then I will say use whatever is in the review. So I'll have a hard bracket, single quotation mark, and a hard bracket, and I'll click save. Sometimes this create text with GPT API call fails. So if we want to make this bulletproof, we can make a retry. There's nothing you have done wrong, but it's just a little bit unstable. And you can also see it's called preview. That's whenever Microsoft is calling things preview, it's not 100% ready for production yet, but it will be. So if I open it, I can say on error. Up here, I can have a retry policy. If I say fixed here, I can say retry, and usually it's just necessary like 2 times, but to be sure, we can say retry this 5 times, and this is only when it fails. The interval is 2 seconds, fine, and otherwise it will produce an error. We could create more error handling, but that's not really the scope here. It's just to say that you might want to do a little retry here if you experience that these API calls to the GPT fails. Then we can go back to main and just talk about what we do. We initialize, we extract data, and then we do sentiment analysis. We will output this to the review data table, but from there it's very easy to output to Excel. Now we are attaching here. You will see that the extraction is quite fast, and then we will do these GPT calls. We will do those that will take a few seconds each. You can see in behind here to the right a little bit slower. If you like these videos, please give this video a thumbs up or give a Google review. That will really help me and my channel a lot. I can create much more of these videos for you. Thank you. If I go back to Power Automate Desktop, now I'm in Initialization, no matter where I am. So go over to the right, double click the reviews. We have the extraction from before. And then if I go here, you can see here that we have the sentiment positive, and then we also have the possible subject causes for the positive assessment could be positive experience of being taught by Anders in Power Automate Desktop. And I can also see a lot of these ones here. And if I go over here, I can click more, and here we have them. So really nice. This is exactly what we want. And this was, by the way, the first. We already knew that. But if I go to the second, then click here and go over to more, then we have a new building a robot army, or whatever the reasons why they gave this analysis, this review was, it's being mentioned here. Great. Now I want to write this out to Excel. So let's create a place for our data. And I'll just do this on my desktop. That's just to make it easy to find. So I'll right click, new folder. Usually you want to place it in another folder, but for now it's great to have it on the desktop when we develop. I'll right click, and then I say copy as path. If you use Windows 10, you need to press Shift on your keyboard and then right click. Then you can find this copy as path. Then we go to Power Automate Desktop. We will save the path in the initialization, and that is because we want to use variables for things that can change. Imagine that I move this folder to another place, then I can easily go into my flow initialization and update this. Call this one project path. Control V to paste it in, and then you need to delete these 2 quotation marks like this. Then we will click save. Then we want to create an Excel instance. So here we open up the program, and maybe we could move this set variable up here. So we have the set variables, and then we launch. We also want to open up our programs here in Initialization. I'll drag in an Excel. I will open a blank document. And here I can say make instance visible. I often want to do this, and that's because then it's easier to debug. We will not have our Excel book locked. And you can see here it says variables produced, Excel instance. Then we will click save. Then we want to create a new subflow where we write to Excel. So I go up to subflows, new subflows, write to Excel, and click save. This is right after the sentiment analysis, so fine. What I want to do here, now I have opened up a blank Excel. Here I can say write to Excel worksheet. We can write out the data table, and then we also need a header row. Unfortunately, we cannot write, when we write a data table out, we cannot include its headers. We need to do it separately. So let's first do the headers. And here, we already have done this expression, the value to write. So because we are lazy, let's click save here. Let's go to initialization, open up the reviews here, grab this one here, Control C, then move back to write to Excel, move in here, the value to write, paste it in, and then move the hat. Then we want to say, where do we want these rows to be inserted? That will be the header row. So this one will be column A, row 1, and then we will have the data table below of that in row 2. So similarly, because we are lazy, I could say Control-C, Control-V, and then we have a copy of this. Double-click to open it. Now I want to write to A2. That's because whenever we write a data table to an Excel, then it will place it nice and distribute it between the rows and columns. If you want to know more about Excel in Power Automate Desktop, here's an expert video for you that wants to get better. But the value to write, that will be the reviews. Then I'll click Save. Then we also need to close and save Excel, and let's create a subflow for that. So we'll just go up here, and we will call the new subflow end. Here will just be a close Excel. I will save the document as, and in the document path, I will use my variable. And this is smart because then if I want to save it somewhere else, I can just update the variable in the initialization. I don't need to find it anywhere in the flow. And imagine I have used this path a couple of times in the flow. So here I want to say sentiment analysis.xlsx. That's all I need. I click Save. Then I just need to run these two subflows as well, remember? So we have two more subflows. Have a run subflow here. That will be write to Excel first, like this, and we will also have the end. You can see why it's nice to use subflows, because then it's easy structured. If you want to know more about these best practices, I also created a complete advanced 2-hour video guide that will teach you every best practice of Power Automate Desktop. Remember to save your flow because there's no autosave here in Power Automate Desktop. And now we're done. We can run this. We can, of course, scale it. We can do multiple extractions and much more. But for now, this is fine. Now we are starting to iterate to each one of these rows. We do the GPT calls in the background. You can see we open up this Excel book. We will have this iterated. And yes, if you like this, again, please give this video a thumbs up. That will really help me and my channel a lot. Now we are through. So if I go out here, we can now see that we have a folder. We have a sentiment analysis.xlsx. And here we have it. We have a name, review, and sentiment analysis. We have the name, we have the review, and we have sentiment positive, possible subject courses, Power Automate honest teaching style. And we have them down here. We have all 9 reviews, and you can also see Heidi Barkholz unknown. That makes sense because there were no words from Heidi Barkholz. Your next Power Automate Desktop video is here, and that will teach you how to scroll all of these reviews. Just go click it.